Hello, and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. We all know that life is hard, right? It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it can be wonderful all at the same time. My hope is that we can take a deep dive into self-development topics and explore life's lessons through book clubs, conversations, and interviews. And together, we can uncover the lessons that others have already learned to help us navigate this crazy, wonderful ride called life. Hello and welcome to Message in the Middle with Marianne. Today, I'm finally able to bring you a conversation with Dina Henry Scott that I've been hoping to have for quite some time, I think since I started. And I know many of the listeners already know you, Dina, but for those who don't, you're a career woman who's kind of traversed the world of technology for years. So that's something in itself. You're a mother, a wife, a grandmother, which is your favorite role right now, and a cancer survivor. And we'll get into more of that in a minute. But you and I connected back in 2020. We were both in a wellness community, and I got to learn a little bit more about you and then see some of the journey you were going on that I want to talk to you about today. So welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, thank you. And thank you so much for your patience, Marianne. I'm sorry it took a but we're finally here.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just you, me too, right? Schedules are crazy in real life.
Schedules are crazy. Yes.
So one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you was because when I started this and I was thinking about the people that I would talk to and the kind of stories I wanted to hear, I wanted things that were inspirational, but also brought the messages, right? The message in the middle. There's messages in all the journeys we go through. And life is messy and it's hard and it's complicated. And I thought, you came to mind because you've certainly seen a lot of that in the most recent years and had to deal with that. So I'd love it if you could kind of just take us back, for those that don't know your story, somewhere around the time where you first found out what you were going to go through and got your diagnosis and what that looked like.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Yeah, so my journey that we're discussing, my cancer journey, started in August of 2020. Of course, we were already, full blown into COVID times by then. And as you mentioned, you and I were in a wellness community together, and I was probably the healthiest that I had been in a really long time. I was exercising on a regular basis, eating well, losing weight. Work was going great. Home life was great. Everything was great. And I've always been one of those people that always went and got her exams and her mammograms done every year. And I tootled off that August 2020 to go get my normal mammogram. It didn't even occur to me that I should be worried. And lo and behold, they found something that they didn't really like. And they brought me back in and I did a biopsy that very afternoon. They had me come back in that soon, which kind of freaked me out just in that case. And I was diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer in my right breast. It was a ductal tumor, which is very common. That's usually where women get breast cancer in their milk ducts. And but it had broken through the milk duct. So they immediately got me connected with a surgeon and oncologist. And it was kind of a whirlwind. It's like I was diagnosed the 27th of August. And I was immediately just whipped into this huge machine. At the time I had Kaiser, which you may or may not be familiar with being on the East Coast, but Kaiser is a huge healthcare system that's on the West Coast. And they're, fully inclusive of, surgeries, hospitals, doctors, pharmacy, the whole kit and caboodle. It's like a huge system. And I love them. So they have this huge machine that, the minute you were diagnosed, it's like you go into this sweeping set of appointments and doctors. And being somebody that has never experienced any kind of a health issue like this, it was very overwhelming. But I'm also one of these people that really believes in researching, understanding, gaining knowledge. And that's what the mode I went into. And by the second week of September, I was already in for surgery. I opted to do a lumpectomy because the cancer tumor was still very small. and they had not found any other tumors anywhere in my right or left breast. And so the surgeon and I both decided that a lumpectomy would be the way to go. So within a couple of weeks, I was under the knife, so to speak. It was all, outpatient, and went ahead and had that done. And while they did the surgery, they also removed some of my lymph nodes and biopsied those. And unfortunately, they found cancer in my lymph nodes. So even though I had a stage 1 tumor, it had moved. And of course, the minute you have any kind of involvement with your lymph nodes, they start throwing the book at you. So I was kind of hoping that it would have been a clean surgery, and they would have probably put me through about 3 weeks of radiation after that, and then I would have been done. But because they did find cancer in my lymph nodes, I had to go through chemotherapy. And that was a real shocker for me, because I felt very good about the care I had been given. But when they found the cancer, they were like, okay, you're going to have to go through chemotherapy, and it's going to be about 3.5 months of infusions. And they went through the whole thing. And I was honestly kind of gobsmacked by the whole thing. I just kept kind of going back to, all right, I'm the healthiest I've been in my entire adult life. And it's like, how can this even be? And I didn't spend a lot of time on my pity party, to be honest with you, because I have a husband who just lost both of his parents within the last several years he lost his mom to cancer. So I had to really be very careful about freaking out too much, because frankly, I didn't want to freak him out. And I really didn't spend a lot of time on my pity party. I just kind of looked at it as, all right, well, I should be grateful that I was already on this health journey, and I'm already stronger and healthier than I've been, because now I'll have that health and vitality to help carry me through chemotherapy. And that's really the way I approached it. It's like, okay, let's do this. My doctor was like, well, we can give you a little bit of time if you want to think about it or get yourself ready. And I was like, nope, let's get going. Let's get the show on the road.
What a whirlwind. So I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm just thinking, like, you didn't even have time to process it. It was just happening to you, almost like just so speedy.
Yeah, it was so fast.
The other thing that kind of boggles my mind is your ability to stay positive. And you were doing what we women do, is worrying about everybody else, but you managed to not hesitate and just stay positive. And that was going to be one of my questions, because I think often that's the hard part, right? I think mindset plays a ton into how we do when we have these things happen to us. And you stayed positive.
I did, but I was already kind of on that positivity journey, I should say, to give credit. That wellness community that we were a part of really helped my mindset even before all this started. But I really started changing my mindset even a couple of years before that, maybe 3 or 4 years. It finally hit home for me that I make my own reality, based on how I choose to react to things. And I used to be very reactionary. I used to be very negative. I would go out of my way to just find the worst part of any situation and just dwell on it. And I have learned not to do that. And now it's just habit for me that life sucks sometimes, stuff does happen to you. And I was very fortunate up until that point that I had my health. I had some other things that I was diagnosed with because of my weight and the fact that I wasn't healthy, but I knew that I could completely control that situation. And that's set me on that whole health journey before my diagnosis. But this was very different, because you made a good point, Marianne, that I was swept up into this. And I thank God every day that they had that type of system available, because I think it would have been difficult for me to spend too much time processing it, because once you realize you've got something growing in you that could kill you, it kind of freaks you out. It's like, no. I want this out now. I don't need time to process. You get it out now.
Yeah. Well, and you also mentioned, and I'm this type of person too, you like to research,
Yeah.
right? We don't do things willy-nilly. We like to be sure of like what's the best chance for me and what does this really mean? But again, when something like that's going on, ooh, you almost don't you almost can't. You have to just do it really quickly, if at all.
I did, because once I started working with the oncologist, she asked me not to spend a lot of time on the internet.
Mm,
They gave me a lot of resources, and I kind of understood why she did that, because some people do start diagnosing themselves, because you've got people that are a little bit maybe more like hypochondriacs, and they look for things. I'm not one of those people. So I wasn't too worried about getting myself freaked out. The doctors were really good about talking to me about things. And I would go out and do some research, and I would always find, like reputable sources. Like I, would go to the American Cancer Society website and places like that for legitimate information. And so I felt like I really understood what was going on. And I also understood that I really feel that a big part of what happened in terms of cancer was because of my choices. I did genetic testing and found I had no genetic markers for breast cancer. So I kind of looked at that and I went, okay, how could this have happened? I didn't know of anybody in my family that had breast cancer. I have no genetic markers for breast cancer, which doesn't mean you're never going to get it, but it just means that I'm not predisposed to it. So what happened? And it's like, okay, well, think about what's your lifestyle been like for the last 25, 30 years? You love to drink wine, you love to eat, and you don't like to move. You combine that with the fact that you're predisposed to obesity in your family, because frankly, right, it was in my family. And so I kind of like took ownership for that. And again, instead of going into a pity party situation, it's like, all right, well, if you got yourself here, then you know that you have the power to take yourself out of it and put yourself in the best position to not have to go through this again. I know that I don't have 100% control over never having breast cancer again. I know that. But can I control a lot of the variables that cause cancer? Can I control my obesity? Can I control my blood glucose levels? Can I control what I choose to eat and drink? And can I control movement, making sure that I'm moving every day and being as healthy as possible? I can control all those things. So that's really what I focused on. And as I was going through my chemotherapy, I kind of kept that in mind. It's like, nope, this is a wake-up call. This is a wake-up call for you. You already had a wake-up call in 2018 when I was diagnosed with pre-diabetes. I was the heaviest that I had ever been in my life at that time. I had non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So my liver was shot. I was actually in stage 1 cirrhosis when I was diagnosed, which the doctor was like, okay, I don't know. He even come right out and said, I don't know what you've been eating. He goes, but whatever it is, you need to stop.
Is that what back in 2018, is that what started you on the journey then of trying to get healthier?
Yeah.
So do you find now with having gone through this, and it sounds like all the right messages to yourself, do
Absolutely.
you find it kind of always lingering in the back of your mind? So when you start, doing some of those patterns or thinking about doing some of that stuff, you find it where you remind yourself, well, hey, I got this big
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
I can't do this again, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And it's, and further I get away from it because I finished up all of my chemo and my radiation a year ago in May. So it's been over a year now. And it's going to be, coming up on 2 years of my surgery in September. So further I get away from it, it's harder for me to like remember, but I always bring myself back. Like if I have a weekend where I've indulged, and I love wine, but I don't sit and, drink gobs of wine. I have 1 or 2 glasses kind of thing. My idea of indulging is quite a bit different than it used to be. It's a much more narrow band now than it used to be out here. And
That's partially our age, by the way.
and getting older really, has really played a part of it. So, overall, it was a very sucky situation. I don't wish it on anybody, but I got through it, and I got through it because I think I started the whole process because I was in a good place from a health perspective. And it took me a while. And, there was a lot of traumatic head stuff I had to go through. Losing my hair, I had no idea how much having my hair was a part of my identity. I really had no idea. I had beautiful long blonde hair. I mean, I still have pictures on my phone going, oh, look at how pretty my hair was.
Yeah.
I mean, losing your hair, like, being able to do this and like pulling it out in handfuls, it was super traumatic. Losing my eyebrows, you don't realize that you literally lose every hair follicle in your body.
How did
It's the weirdest thing. Let me tell you something, having hair in your nose,
Yeah.
there's function for that. And when you don't have it, it's like your nose like runs like a sieve because there's nothing to hold back.
So you can't predict. I mean, you
can't.
can never predict until you're
Yeah.
in those shoes what that's
Yeah.
like. But when you think back, like you said, you're getting further removed. But God bless the fact that I can't put myself in those shoes
Yeah.
and I haven't gone through something like that. But I can only imagine you go to brush your hair and you get a handful of hair out. How do you not just fall to your knees and be like so devastated? You had to have
Yeah.
moments where you were, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. They didn't last that long for me. I usually like if I was getting really upset about my hair, it's like I would cry for like about 5 minutes and then it's okay, you just need to stop this now because it's not making anything better. You already knew this was going to happen. And I actually decided once my hair started falling out, I had my guy just buzz it all off. Not only did it save from having like big dust bunnies of my hair hanging around the house because it falls out no matter where you are,
Yeah.
you know, and so I shaved all my hair off. I just had him, clip it all the way off. And I actually found out I have quite a nice head. I was kind of like, oh God, do I have like a lumpy, misshapen head? What's it going to look like? But my head was actually kind of cute. So I took care of that. I was like, all right, no more losing hair trauma. It's going and now it's gone. But like losing my eyebrows, I mean, there's just like so many things you don't think about. And that I'm still, after all this time, you can see me on my video, I'm actually letting my hair grow out again. All my hair turned very curly when it came in. I was kind of wishing that it would have stayed that way because it was actually really cute. But I still don't have any eyebrows. I've got like 2 hairs on one side and 1 hair on the other. And thank goodness they do, blade and shade, tattooing, because otherwise I'd have no eyebrows. I have like literally almost no eyelashes still. But then again, I have no hair in my legs either. Like my hair just didn't come back. And the same thing on my arms. It's like my arms are completely hairless. So, I look at it, I'm like, okay, well, I don't have to shave my armpits anymore or my legs.
Always looking at the glass half full, which is what's
Yeah.
boggling my mind because I didn't know you in that period of time where you said you used to be really the negative Nelly.
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to picture you as that because ever since we've met, you've been a very positive, sunshiny, vibrant woman. And I just can't picture you. I just can't picture you that other way. I really can't.
I was there. I was. And, I'm not into a lot of that new agey stuff, putting things out in the universe and all that. But I kind of do believe that, that what you put out there is what you attract. And I just found that being negative is a habit.
Yeah.
It's a habit. It's like I have people in my life that this is the way they behave. And they choose this. They choose to look at things from a negative perspective. And my daughter, it's funny because years ago, she used to look at me and go, you're just a Pollyanna. You just don't want to see things the way they really are. Well, now that she's a little bit older and she's a mom and, now that she's looking at things, she realizes it's like, you know what? It's all in how I choose to perceive things.
Yeah.
And I just keep myself out of negative situations. I don't live with a lot of drama. I don't like drama. I physically cannot deal with drama anymore. It's like it physically hurts me. Like emotion, like heavy emotions just literally make me sick to my stomach. And so I have learned to avoid bringing that into my life. And when it does have to happen, I find hitting things head on and not avoiding, not deflecting, but, talking through things and looking at things head on are the best way to deal with things so that you can get over it quickly. And that's just the way that I live. And it's a choice. It's a choice. And now it's second nature. I don't I don't have to like listen in my head and go, no, 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 flip your script, think about it a different way. It's like, it's just automatic. That's just the way I perceive
It
things.
is a choice. And I agree with you about, I don't know what term you used, but so you've probably heard me say woo woo before, but I too, like when I started like my looking at all this stuff several years ago, same thing. Like I am not a person that really can believe in all that, like, I guess, conceptual stuff, right? But the more you really start studying and look into this stuff and put it into practice, it is so true. I would stand on a podium and I'm in front of a microphone. But I mean, I literally believe with my whole heart that what you put out there is what you
Yeah.
receive. And that whole, when I did the Mel Robbins book and we talked about the reticular activating system of your brain and how you see the evidence that you call out there, and it is so true. And if you asked me that 7 years ago, I would have like made a funny face at you. But I see it now
Yeah.
all the time. And I just don't think that once you get into that mindset, I don't think you can shift it back. I just think it's who you start becoming.
Yeah. It's just kind of just the way my brain works now, and not to say that I don't get upset and that, I don't get affected by sad things. And of course I do, but I just don't dwell in that space, and I do believe that there is always a good part of whatever's happening. And that's how my cancer journey, that's how I approached it. It's like, I look at it as it was, even more of a wake up call, and it made me realize I could do hard things. Because honestly, up until that point, we've lost parents over the last several years. That was probably the hardest thing that I felt like I had gone through up until this point. But even then, it was just like, I've lived a charmed life. We haven't dealt with a lot of, health issues or life issues of losing jobs, losing houses, cars, losing children, none of that. So I kind of felt like I wondered if I had the gumption to be able to go through something that serious. It's like when you talk to certain people that really have long-term, really stressful situations in their families. I look at that and I think those people are so strong to me because I've never had to deal with that. So when I came across and had to deal with my own cancer journey, I wondered if I had the strength to do it. And I truly believe that everybody can do hard things, not to quote, Glennon Doyle all that much, but we can do hard things.
Yeah.
And we can do hard things because I told myself I could do that hard thing. And I said, yeah, were you worried about it? Yep, you're worried about it. Do you have reservations? Are you going to do it perfectly? No. But you can do it and you're going to get through it. And then you're going to be on the other side and you're going to be a different person because of it. And that's very true in a lot of good ways and some negative ways. I'm still dealing with side effects because unfortunately, the type of cancer that I have is the normal run of the mill stuff, which is the way my doctor described it. But I have to be on a hormone blocker for 7 years. And being our ages, right, we're already dealing with the fact that there's hardly any hormones left. I mean, once you take the hormone blocker, it's like all of a sudden the hot flashes are crazy. Luckily, I haven't experienced a lot of mood swings. So I feel very good about that. But, there's a lot of physical aspects that I'm still dealing with, not to mention the growing my hair back and stuff, but it changes you as a person. And because I have to take this pill for the next 7 years, it's like, it's just a constant reminder of, okay, within that 9-month period that I went through everything, I aged about 10 years. People go, oh, no. It's like, yeah, I really did. There's just lots of side effects to getting sick and going through that kind of a thing. And that too, I had to kind of wrap my head around, it's like finding yourself aging that fast. Almost overnight, you look different and your body works different. You're not as limber and the energy. I still have days sometimes where it's like, I got to take a nap. I'll lay down for like 2 hours. And it's like, I honor my body. When my body says, hey, you need a nap, I go down for a nap. It's like, I have to take care of myself now because my body did go through something very traumatic. And it does take a while for you to get back. And, in some ways, I'm never going to be back to where I was before.
I was going to ask you about what self-care routines you've implemented since going through that, because we know it's important, and we were just coming into really getting better about that, at our age and whatnot. But I imagine that after going through something like that, it's even more important. And like you just said, I mean, that's a simple one, that I need a nap. I take a nap, right? I mean, you give yourself the time and the grace to do that. I know a little bit about you and how you were wired, because I think we kind of grew up similarly.
Yeah.
Go back, 10 years, and you probably would have told yourself you were wasting 2 hours taking the nap, right?
Yeah. Very true. Very true. And then I would sit there and beat myself up for it.
Yes.
Yeah. I just don't do that anymore. I'm much nicer to myself. Again, but I started that journey sooner. But yeah, I mean, I always took good care of myself in terms of like skincare, and I always looked very polished, very put together. But since I've gone through, and again, it really started in 2018 with my first set of diagnoses. I take collagen every day. I take a greens powder. I take tons of supplements. I drink lots of water. I focus on eating good whole foods, right? I really have gotten it took cancer to get rid of my Diet Coke habit. Because once I started chemo, my doctor just said, look, you can't drink any caffeine on this. It really reacts very negatively to all the drugs. So I took that opportunity to say, okay, it's like, I'm already going to be hurting from head to toe, and they're going to have me on some good drugs. I might as well throw caffeine headache in there. And, once I was done, I never went back. So, I broke my Diet Coke habit, and I drank Diet Cokes all day long because I was addicted to caffeine, but I don't like coffee. So, Diet Coke was my caffeine delivery mechanism of choice. So, there were even some things that I changed up, even going through chemo and stuff. But yeah, I'm much more focused on what I put in my body rather than just the external stuff,
Mm-hmm. What surprised you the most out of all of what you went through and the whole whirlwind? At some point, you've had a minute now to look back on it all. What surprised you the most?
How detrimental the whole process was to me physically. Yeah, mentally, I think I came out of it just fine. I feel very good and strong, and knowing that I'm on the right path for my health. I was surprised at how difficult it was going to be physically, and the repercussions of, the lasting repercussions of going through something like that. Because not only did I go through like 14 weeks, or was it, no, wait a minute, or was it longer than that? It was about 3 months of chemo. And then I had a couple of weeks off, and then I did 10 weeks of radiation, daily radiation, Monday through Friday. And, there's nothing like getting, your boobie microwaved every single day. That surprised me too, because I had, major repercussions from that. I was burnt really badly from the radiation treatments. And I think it was just the physical toll that it took. It didn't occur to me. I thought I would bounce back and come right back to where I was. It did not occur to me until I started going through it that it was going to change my life as much as it did from a physical perspective.
Even listening to you, and again, thankfully not having gone through it, I can't imagine, right? So I can see why that would be surprising to you, because I'm hearing you say the words, but I also am logical enough to know what I'm hearing and what I'm imagining is nowhere near what you felt and what you went through, right? Yeah. I'm smart enough to know that. So I can really understand why it was such a surprise, because I don't think anybody can quite put themselves there. Even if they watch a friend or a family member, I don't think it's quite the same. I'm sure it's not the same, right? It's just...
Well, and while I was going through my issue, a good friend of mine had a sister-in-law that was going through breast cancer herself, but her situation was very different. She had a very aggressive type, and she was much younger and went through multiple rounds of this. I have my nephew's wife is battling for her life right now, and has for the last 2 years with colon and liver cancer. So I look at what I went through, and I acknowledge that it was life-changing for me. But I recognize too that in the big scheme of things, I really got off very easy. I live someplace in, a part of the world where I get like the most excellent healthcare. I'm very grateful that I can afford to have the very best healthcare. I had my health, I had support from my husband and my daughter and friends, so in the big scheme of things, I look at it and I go, it could have been a lot worse. And I'm so grateful that I came through the way I did. And that's really what I focus on, even more so than, I acknowledge the physical stuff, but I don't dwell on it a lot. Every once in a while it hits me, but for the most part, I dwell on the fact how lucky I was, because it could have been so much worse. I could have just decided to skip that mammogram. It was during COVID and none of us were going anywhere. And I look at that because I still feel it was like 6 months because I normally would go in April. And so it was like 6 months before I was able to get an appointment because they just weren't doing them. And my husband even said, he goes, do you think your outcome would have been any different if they would have found it 6 months ago? And it's like, well, yeah, but shoulda, coulda, woulda. It's like, there's no point in me going there, because it wasn't like I purposely chose to not go. They just weren't doing it. So there was nothing I could do about that.
Even if you did purposely choose, you can't go backwards, right? I mean, that's one of the lessons that I've been really working on is you can't undo the past. You can't undo the history. You need to give yourself some grace and if necessary, learn a lesson out of it and move forward, but you can't go back. It doesn't change anything.
Yeah. So, I look at it and I just think I'm very grateful that I was able to move through it the way I did. And for the most part, my life is back to where it was. I work full time and I do stuff with friends and hubby. And, I'm very active with my sweet baby Dean, and life is good. Life is good. And I'm hoping that this was a one and done situation.
I hope that for you too. I think, when I hear you and the way you're talking, it feeds right into something else we both know it matters. And that's being grateful for like living a life of gratitude. And again, if you would have told me that, 8 years ago, I don't know, I would have probably like rolled my eyes, but
me too.
Right?
Because I was always wanting more.
Right. And we wanted those external things that would give us the satisfaction of either achieving something or, I don't want to say showing off, but just being able to like have things and always chase that next thing. And I can tell you, I am so much happier being happy in the space I'm in today and being grateful for the smallest things. I mean, literally every day I try to notice something. It can be a flower that just bloomed or breeze that I felt when I needed it, but it's something, the birds singing outside the window. I put something in Facebook the other day on our group page about that. It's those little things. I think they really help shift your perspective. And it sounds like, that you're full of that.
Well, I think gratitude does go hand in hand with being present.
Yes.
Kind of you were talking about looking around and finding things that you're grateful for. You can only do that if you're present, if you're actually just sitting here in the moment and thinking about, here I am, I'm sitting in this space. I'm looking outside. I'm grateful right now that I can see blue sky, because basically this time of year in California, the half of our state's usually on fire. And it's not right now. And every day I wake up and I look out at that blue sky and I go, thank God. I'm so happy that, our state's not on fire right now and we don't have to deal with that. Or I planted some herbs. My daughter got me these really cute little mason jar, like herb kits for my birthday. And I've got them all lined up on my windowsill. And it's like every day when I get up to go out and grab my supplements and have my little yogurt drink and my collagen, and my little routine I do in the morning, I go and I look at my little windowsill and look at my little herb garden. And I was so thrilled today that I actually saw some new little sprouts coming up on my mint. And I was like, I'm so grateful for that. I'm just so happy that I'm able to grow something because frankly, I always thought I had a black thumb, and apparently I don't anymore. But I was just grateful for that. I was like, I'm just so grateful that my daughter got me those gifts, that I really liked them. I had like the perfect spot for them, and that they're growing and they're thriving. So it just, it was just a quick moment, but it was a moment nevertheless that I was like, I'm grateful for that.
Those feel so great. They just,
it is. And it's, it's such a nice way to live your life, It
It
really
takes
is.
practice. And I think kind of waking up to some of these things and really starting to build them into your daily life. But I think once you do, it really shifts
Yeah.
things quite a bit. Is there anything that you would tell yourself if you were looking back and you could tell yourself something before you kind of went through this? Is there any advice you'd give yourself or to somebody else listening?
Oh, that's such a good question. You know what? I don't know. I'm grateful that I went through it the way I did. I think the only thing I could say is that I would have told myself you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You're just going to be okay. Breathe through it. It goes by fast when you're in it. It seems like it's never going to end, but it does go by fast. And just know that you're strong enough to deal with whatever comes your way.
I love that. And I also think it makes me think about, it's been a theme through your whole conversation. It's the cycle of life in that you talked about having such a great life and you never had any big bumps and everything was good. But I don't think anybody goes untouched in this life. There's something that happens and you got yours. I'm using quotes, you guys, but something happened to you. But the thing to remember is it was just one season and it passed and you're okay. And now you're back to a different life, a different norm.
A different Dina, but I'm still here.
And it's a good one, right? I mean, you're living a good, happy life.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important message too, because I think when we're on the high, we don't necessarily expect something to happen or we're waiting for it. And then we're on the low, we don't think we're going to get out of it. But the truth is, it's just a cycle, good or bad. Whatever one you're in, it's going to end at some point and you're going to shift to something else. And you just have to work through that and then get to the next one. It's just an ongoing.
Well, yeah. And I don't remember where I read this. I've heard this analogy quite a few times, but I think about those things like a wave that comes crashing over you.
Yeah.
And you can let it come and crash, hold your breath for a little bit and wait for your head to pop up. Or you can thrash. Either way, it's going to happen the same. So just chill, just breathe through it, or at least hold your breath with my underwater analogy, knowing that the wave is going to crash over you and your head's going to pop up and you're going to be able to breathe again. There's no point in thrashing and just deal with it. Embrace the suck, as the Marines say.
I love that. Embrace
I
the
do too.
suck.
Embrace the suck.
Hey, so before we wrap, I have two very important questions, just to say it out loud. Health-wise, you're good.
Yeah.
I mean, your things are really good right now.
I do have an appointment in a couple of weeks for my regular annual mammogram, but I got a new job last summer, and unfortunately, they didn't offer Kaiser. So that was kind of a bummer for me. And I had to get reestablished with some new doctors. And even though I'm completely fine, they wanted to get me established with an oncologist just to, be a part of my treatment and my health journey. And she did a full pat me down everywhere and, looking for lumps. And she's like, there's nothing there.
Good.
So she's like, unless you want to do mammograms more often, she goes, I suggest that you just do, the normal one once a year. And so, a couple of months ago when she did the physical exam, it was all good. So they're all like, hey, you're doing great. Whatever you're doing, just keep on doing it.
I love that. And the second question I'm going to ask you, and we can close on a high note, a really high note. Your health was a high note, but a really high note, because we share this in common. The light of your life right now, your grandson, you're enjoying that.
Grandbaby. Yeah, my grandson, Dean. He just turned 3 on Sunday, the 10th of July. I'm not sure when this will be coming out.
Happy birthday. It probably will be a couple months, but happy late birthday.
And he's like the love of my life. He's the love of both of my husband and I. I mean, we just adore him, and we love our daughter too. Don't get me wrong. She, we only had the one, but this grandbaby, being a grandparent is a whole nother level, isn't it?
It's different. Yeah. Somebody once that worked for me asked me that. She came in and she was so close with her mom and her grandmom. And she said, my mother keeps saying that I'll understand one day how different it is. She's like, is it true? I said, absolutely true. You really love gosh, we all love our children to death, to the highest degree. But there's just something there.
There's level up.
There is this another level up. And let's be honest, part of that is we get to do the good
We get
stuff,
to do this,
right?
and we're a lot older too.
Yes.
I think, I'm much more chill than I was when my daughter was around and she was growing up. But I kind of knew that because the whole kind of grandparent cycle is something that's been in our family for a long time. I grew up with my grandparents being very close to us, and I adored my grandmother. And I was so blessed to have her as long as I did. She passed away at 97. So I had her for a very long time. And then when my daughter was born, she was very close to my mom, very close. Grew up around them, spent a lot of time with them. And now that our daughter has a grandson, we're continuing the trend. They live very close to us. We see them almost every single day. Matter of fact, he's going to be over spending the night with Gigi and Papa this weekend.
I love it.
And, I think it's just a special way to help raise our next generations.
Yeah. And I also think we always talk about what's your why? What's your why on whatever it is, whether it's a health journey or even just your mindset journey. I mean, the daily living, for me, I have a 3-year-old also, but it's a girl, and she is definitely part of my why.
Yeah, me too.
I just get so lit up when I get to spend time with her. So I'm glad that we both are getting to experience that. And let's hope we can for a very long time. I'd love to watch them grow up.
And that is such a fun age. So fun.
The best. They get their own little personality, and it's just it's fantastic.
And it's just so fun to see like how the genes, mixed up, because he is such a good combination of my daughter and my son-in-law, but I think he gets a lot more of his genes from our side of the family.
Yeah, the good and the bad always comes out just a little stronger, right? And you can see it clearly.
Yeah.
Oh, well, this has been so fun. Thank you for letting us do this and get this on the books. I really appreciate it. And I know the audience will get a lot out of it. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for inviting me. And it was really great catching up with you, Marianne.
You too. Thank you for listening to this episode of Message in the Middle with Marianne. If you enjoyed the podcast, please take a minute to share it and write a review, as it helps bring new listeners to our audience. If you'd like to keep the conversation going between episodes, please join us at Facebook group Message in the Middle with Marianne.